Well, Bruce Linton is the founder, chairman, and co-CEO of Canopy Growth, the largest licensed producer of cannabis in Canada. It's based in Smiths Falls, Ontario, and the first cannabis company to be listed on a major North American stock exchange, and he joins me from Toronto. Bruce Linton, first of all, thanks for taking time to speak with me. I appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. If they didn't keep all the money in Toronto, I wouldn't come here so often.
Fair enough. You got into this market on the ground floor of legalization. There's not really a roadmap, I don't think so, until now maybe, of how to start a successful cannabis company. Walk me through how you built this company into what it is today.
Well, I think by getting to be a little bit older and having been a tech person, I looked at the opportunity and thought this could be a global thing. And the reason I looked at the opportunity is back under the Conservative government, it was pretty evident that the police forces were finding it impossible to govern cannabis because the rules for medical, they allowed people to get permits to grow plants or transfer them, and it got to be kind of complicated because were they being used as a medical product or a way not to go to jail.
Right.
And so I started the business thinking that Mr. Harper was in power and that if the police aren't happy with him, probably that doesn't align very well with his electorate. And then I started looking into it, and I thought, man, they're going to govern this like a really dangerous narcotic. And they're going to really care about us not losing product. And if you're a tech guy, you understand how to not lose things.
Right.
It's about databases, but you also realize that turning on the lights in that first plant was going to probably be a couple $1 million. We're going to have to, think about the security and the cameras and everything. So if it was small, for sure you'd never make enough product inside that small facility to cover the operating overheads. So I then thought, why not buy the former Hershey chocolate factory because it was empty and gigantic.
Right.
And the bylaws were okay for growing plants inside there. And so that's how it started. It wasn't genius marketing. It was more like really boring adherence to rules and logic of money.
Sometimes that pays off. As a pioneer in the legal cannabis marketplace, talk to me about how the government has rolled out the legalization plan with this, what's turning out to be this patchwork of rules from province to province. Is this how you would have done it?
Well, listen, man, we live in Canada. Every province has a different way that they administer different things. And I'm not sure which one's going to work the best. So I probably would have conducted the experiment to some extent similar to this because I don't know, when you go to Nova Scotia, they already had a store that sold beer, wine, and spirits. And so all they did was use the same parking lot in the front door. And they divided the store on the left-hand side with a glass wall is where the cannabis will be. Maybe that's the best way. You've got New Brunswick, which has some really great stores that are totally independent and set up. And Ontario, which is going entirely online because we're going to have too few stores. And then the government's going to make all their money by bringing the product from the producer into the warehouse and then letting the private sector set up the stores. And then you got places like Manitoba, which have private sector stores and e-commerce from them, as well as government e-commerce. When we get back together in a year, we will have data to say which one works better.
All right.
But it's kind of, this is Canada. Everybody should have a little bit of a regional mix for sure.
All right. I mean, so talk to me about on the public policy side. So, are you satisfied that this will work to do the two things that the government set out to do, which is to provide a safe supply and try to sideline the black market? Is it going to work?
I think it will start to work. And when I say that, I think this is a multi-year game that starts with this product and this offering, increases the availability through a variety of stores. But what we're selling probably matches up with 35 or 40% of what the illicit market sells. And when I say that, you might see people walking down the street with one of those devices that looks like a electronic cigarette. That may have THC in it, or it may have nicotine. Those are called vapes, so they're liquid concentrates. We don't sell that, and that's a very profitable line. People talk about edibles. I use the word ingestible, meaning it could be a beverage or a chewable product. We're not making any of those. So it's a start in that we're going to have the framework, but we need to next year, and it's kind of committed to layer on those incremental products so the illicit market doesn't get to make the stuff which is the higher margin. I think the rules where landlords have real penalties for letting illegal stores operate called dispensaries or growing product where they know, that's going to be a big hit on the illegal market.
Okay. Let me ask you about there's this knock in some quarters that the licensees are big companies are favored, and that'll be to the detriment of smaller companies. What do you think about that? And I have some people suggesting to me, look, we could get to a point where you can compare it to the beer market. We might have big labels, and then we might have a fast-growing craft beer market. Maybe it'll be the same in the cannabis market in this country at some point. Do you see that happening?
Yeah, so I think it's going to be substantial companies like Canopy, and then a lot of craft grow, which are the smaller ones. And what the difference is at the substantial company, we're trying to take and extract or create from the cannabis flower medical outcomes. So clinical trials against sleep, dog anxiety. We're looking through a whole range of clinical trials, which you need to be a substantial company to disrupt medical. On the next format, so if we make a beverage, if you're going to make a beverage, you need a bottling line. So that takes a bigger company. But then there's going to be dried cannabis, and I think that product might end up being a boutique, expensive product, which will be quite often the domain of the small craft grower. But they may have a system by which they feed it up into somebody else to containerize, distribute. And I see that program running over and over again. I was in Jamaica a week and a half ago where they're taking a system on very similar to Canada. And I think that this small craft grower in that jurisdiction will do very well, but they need a big partner to deal with the testing, the compliance with all the medical considerations of what's in it, what's not.
Right.
And so I think the only ones that are going to get squeezed are the sort of the medium-sized in the middle.
Talk to me in a little bit of time left here. I want to talk about the issue of advertising. Let's talk about that. Your company's been active in the lead up to legalization with some billboards, online marketing, and so on. But once legalization happens, you can't promote the product in any way that might be appealing to young people, or in a way that associates cannabis with a lifestyle that's glamorous, promotes physical fitness or recreation, excitement, vitality, risk, daring. You know all that. You can't do it in a place where young people can see it. So how will those limitations affect your marketing strategies?
So what we've been doing to date is building the brand. So Tweed, shirt I have on today. And it'll say something like, hi, H-I. Question, will it be like gelato? Can I sample it before I buy it? Come to tweed.com to learn. We never make a claim of what's in the product, who is the product. We don't even talk about CBD or THC. And we won't. And when it becomes October 17th, the only places you'll get more specific message will be in age-gated areas.
Right.
So if you go to a bar, which you have to be 19 to go into, you may see information materials from us. But if you don't build the brand, my competitor uses a brand, it's called Ziploc Baggies. And I do not have a very effective chance at competing with somebody who just puts things in a clear plastic bag and tells you a story about what it is. We want people to know Tweed saves towns, does things right, leads the world, is the best in Canada, and they trust us. And so that brand building, I think, is actually going to be a big part of your early question on how do we divert people from the illegal activities to the legal? Well, you make them trust brands and move to them.
All right, let's finish on this. You seem to have a fair bit of clarity on how you want to proceed, but some other people have expressed concerns and would like more clarity from Health Canada on how the rules will be applied. Are you satisfied with Health Canada's approach, or do you want clarity too?
Well, I'm glad I have my job, not Health Canada's job, because theirs is way harder, and they've done a great job. Like, they have been able to get us from zero momentum to almost 400,000 medical patients, launch this now REC program, give guidelines on this, and you know, if you go back to a bureaucrat and say, can you give me even more certainty, they're in the business of giving you guidelines, and you have to figure out how to operate within them. So we haven't found it particularly challenging. I think, you know, the longer you're around the business and the operating platform, we see the regulations as actually an advantage. So we spend a lot of time, like, you know, last week was EU, UK. And it's about making sure that the regs and the platforms in which we go into are well set up, because I don't have competitors who are in the same business as me. I have competitors of public perception, public policy, and the illicit market. That's where we focus.
Right, but you're confident you and others will not be targeted. We will not find ways around regulations to actually try to be more appealing to young people.
No, you won't. Young people are, you know, 19 years of age is a great group. The demographic from there up represent where, you know, alcohol goes. And so I don't see anybody who'd be irresponsible. Like, we don't even like the format. In the US, they make these things called gummy bears. I don't think Canada's going to say, welcome to the gummy bear aisle with cannabis in them. We do like the idea of a beverage that's in a controlled container and sold in a liquor store equivalent, because we think that format actually is understood by society. This is a long-term game. It's a big opportunity to disrupt pharmacy, disrupt alcohol, disrupt sports recovery, disrupt animal veterinarian. And so why would you try to find a way to squeak out a little sale to a, you know, an underage through a funny program? You'd have to be pretty foolish to mess up your opportunity with that.
All right. Well, as you say, it's going to be a learning experience for all kinds of people. And thanks for giving us your perspective today, Bruce Linton. Good to talk to you.
Well, thanks for having me on. I can't believe we can say Canada is being bold and leading the world, because that's not an everyday statement. So we should probably rejoice in that.
All right. Good to talk to you. Take care.
Thanks, Peter.